Hello, welcome my nerds. Welcome back. Zach, how are we doing?
Well, we're good.
We're doing good.
We're doing.
So, a couple episodes back, we were talking about Hogwarts Legacy. And I know we kind of all, like, Hogwarts Legacy is still big right now, obviously, because it's one of the highest, I think, the highest grossing game
Of the year.
so far of the year. So
yeah, it's crushing it number-wise.
Yeah. So we talked about how we haven't really found anything crazy like glitchiness or nothing that to stop us, but something happened to me. I texted you when it happened, and it actually crushed my soul a little bit.
It crushed my soul for you.
So, if you haven't noticed, if you don't know, there's a lot of people who are dealing with this where I was mid-quest. And I was doing something, and I died during the quest. So I said, no big deal. It's also partly on me because I didn't, I let the game autosave all the time. And me not physically saving the game and like creating copies of it.
Oh, so you didn't save your game at all?
I kind of let the game autosave how like I'm used to with other.
But you didn't go in and physically
games.
type save.
Yeah, no.
I feel less bad for you now. I still feel bad for you, but like you gotta save. Save frequently has been drilled into me since like the days of like Skyrim.
I'm so used to playing different games where I never had to do that anymore. It was just easier because autosave has become such an ingrained thing for me now where like it just does it for me so I can just keep hammering away. But I wasn't expecting what happened to me to happen. So what happened was mid-quest, I died, so I go to redo the quest and come to find out I can't talk to the person to finish said quest. And I like did whatever I could. I was like, okay, maybe I will just hop on a different quest, get farther in the game, and then I can come back and it'll like refix itself.
Yeah.
And that never happened. I actually got stuck on the broom quest where you get your broom for the first time. And I could not, for the life of me, buy the broom. It was like stuck in like limbo where I already bought it, but I didn't actually buy it. Because the guy's like, "Oh, you're back," and I'm like, "Whoa, I'm not supposed to be. You're not supposed to say that because I haven't met you yet, technically."
So I have this happens to me, and I just in terms of game glitches, it is not one that I'm gonna like kick up a major fuss about. But I have noticed that with mine, if there are occasionally times with like the big chests, you know, the ones that have like it looks like it's got like a spiral slot on it, and it usually has like good stuff. So usually you'll get it in like a hidden area or something like that. It's usually a good chest. It's usually got something good in it. Where if my like inventory is full, so if like it's a clothing item, if it's full and then I go to open it, it'll stop and it'll say your stuff is full. You have to get rid of something if you want to. So
right.
I will get rid of something, and then the chest, even though it's closed, won't reopen. It'll process like it's been opened already. And Bryn was like, you should just go leave the area and then come back, or like reload your game. And I was like, okay. So I did. I left. I saved. I then reloaded the game back on, and then went back to that area, went back into the thing, and it was open. So it had processed that it had opened and an item had left the chest. But I don't have the item, and I know because I deleted something to put in that spot. And then when I went back to check it again, I still had an open slot, but the chest was not processing. At the end of the day, it's not a huge deal. Like you get a lot of inventory, you get a lot of like loot drops and stuff like that. It's not a huge deal, but it was particularly frustrating because it was a puzzle quest. So I did like one of the Hogwarts secrets to like there's a couple Hogwarts secret things where you can like if you figure out this puzzle, it opens a room and then you get a chest, and like so it was one of those. Now, you can do those at any level. It wasn't like requiring it was something I could have done early on. So the item doesn't matter to me. But I've noticed it twice now where like first I did like a random maze where it did that, and I was like, "Oh, that's weird. It won't let me open the chest. That's annoying." And now it's done it again, and I'm like, "Okay." In terms of glitches, it's a pretty easy one to just be like, bummer, and move on with my life. But yours sucks because as you were saying, you had to start your whole game over, didn't you?
Yeah, because I've also read about your situation too. where I've after reading that situation, where you're having where like you might not get an item, I get worried of that with me having this situation I had. So now I'm like very good about getting rid of weaker equipment, so I can just like have free slots, so it doesn't happen to me. So the whole broom situation I was frustrated with, but I was like, you know what, I might get a mount soon, so I'm not even gonna worry about it. Other than these two missions, I literally had to walk the lengths of the map on both sides without having a flying device. So I was like really trucking, and it took me a while to do it.
Yeah.
But I was like, whatever. So then I continued on where I was going to learn. And by the way, the game has been out for what, about a week now? For
I think it's probably been on. It came out technically pre-release on like the 10th, so it's been 2 to 3 weeks officially.
Okay, so I'm not even going to worry about spoiler at this point.
Yeah, at this point, the window of spoiler of like the internet courtesy is down. Like, I think we did a good job by waiting as long as we waited. Pat us on the back.
Yeah, the last episode, I actually put it like when I was doing edits, I put it like alarm in there, like alarm door saying like, "Hey, spoiler alerts." And then, like,
and this will be our spoiler alert warning. We're getting into Hogwarts Legacy spoiler territory. If you don't want to hear that, skip forward or drop a like and a download and come back when you've beaten the game or whenever you feel like you're comfortable with spoilers.
Yeah. So I learned Alohomora from Mr. Moon. So I'm collecting all those statues, right? But I got caught by, like, I was about to finish the quest, and I got caught by a prefect, and I was pissed. So I was like, whatever, I'll do it again. But it started me back to where you first meet Mr. Moon right outside the Great Hall.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't let me talk to him. It did the same thing like it did to the broom guy. It wouldn't let me talk to him. But made it worse was it says that I'm on that quest, and it wouldn't let me get off the quest. It made me stuck there, and I couldn't leave the castle. I couldn't leave any part of the grounds at all. So I couldn't even like.
It's not even like the hoofing it thing where you're like, it's inconvenient, but I can wait until they patch it. You know, hopefully they'll patch this in the next like week or two, and I'll just hoof it until then.
But like where I was stuck on this point, which forced me, and it was upsetting because I did so much research because I was getting frustrated, that I was like, okay, what if I leave the school grounds? Maybe it will just like automatically glitch itself out, and then it'll redo it. No, it like literally told me it wouldn't come up with the circle bar where it's like loading or anything. I physically couldn't move myself out.
Yeah, because you were technically doing the game recognized that you were doing the stealth mission. Like it was, the game was thinking he's doing the stealth mission. He's just not in the stealth area right now, and so it's like we're not gonna box you entirely in, but you do have to stay within the bounds of the castle, and so you were just stuck in that like nighttime.
Lily was in limbo. I was literally in like a limbo-esque mode.
So you couldn't talk to him to start the quest, but you couldn't talk to him to end the quest, or like what would happen if you like went into like the stealth mission side of things where you're like the prefect.
So it knocked me all the way back to where it was daytime, and I couldn't even talk to him to start the quest to be night. And
did you just wait until nighttime to see what happened?
I couldn't switch to nighttime.
Interesting.
Like for some reason, like it wouldn't switch to night. I couldn't leave the castle. I couldn't even do like any like puzzles or anything. I literally just ran around the castle like a chicken with its head cut off. Like, what do I do? Yeah. And so I got frustrated and paused the game. I got on the Goog machine and started researching, and apparently hundreds of people were having this issue. Mm-hmm. Lots and lots of people having this issue.
I wonder if you had physically saved the game while in that like limbo state, if it would have like if you had like saved it and then quit out of the game entirely, came back in with that loaded file, if it would have just like rejumbled it back to
and that I don't know. So from everyone, they said the best thing you can do is to restart the game. So I said, well, if I gotta restart the game, that really blows. So I still have a Ravenclaw character, just waiting for them to patch it, essentially. Okay. So I started a new character as a new house. I started as a Slytherin, and as of right now, of me saving, I have like at least 2 file saves. which I've never also, me having the second run through, I have not died or lost a quest yet, so I haven't really experienced this problem.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm hoping that I don't have to worry about this. I have gone with no glitches along with my Slytherin character yet. But if it does happen, at least I save before I go into another quest now or something. Again, I take a little blame as myself because I'm used to other games where you have autosave, because they don't some of the games that I've also played, they don't really have a saving factor anymore.
Mm-hmm.
They always just have for you. It does autosave, yeah. So I got kind of complacent in that realm of autosave.
Yeah,
but,
do me a favor. When you get a chance later today, go back into your Ravenclaw character. And I really like that they put in multiple, like, you have your save
slots.
files, but then you also have, like, slots for that character. So, like, you can have a Ravenclaw house, a Slytherin house. Like, they know people are going to play multiple houses. Right. That's why they did that. Right. Which is a great thing for them to put in. Go back into your Ravenclaw character, do, like, a hard save, and then quit out of the software entirely. So I know you're playing on Xbox, and you can do that where you can, like, you know, if you open another program, it'll be like, we have to close your Hogwarts Legacy. Just do that, and then see if it, like, reboots your character enough, or reboots the like game enough when you quit out of it, and then come back into it for that save file to, like, be like, oh, now you can talk to him. Just because I want to see, and then text.
Okay,
me.
Yeah, I'll try it. Yeah, I'll definitely try that.
We'll give everyone an update next week and let you know if that helps. So that if you're waiting for that patch to come out, and if it hasn't at that point, we have a solution for you.
Yeah, so this is a like a PCA for anyone who's playing Hogwarts Legacy or who's going to play. Make sure you save your games, your game files, your physically yourself too, along with autosaves. What's kind of cool too, though, is that autosaves don't really overwrite your
save file,
your physical save files. You have to do that yourself. So that's nice. Is that go back to old school mentality and physically save your game yourself before you start any quests, because I am pretty good at the game, but I don't ever take the fact that I will not die in the games now. So I am not a god in my world. I do die.
Yeah, it in theory the game should work the way you're describing, but like they have the save aspect, which I always recommend. This is just a tip for gamers in general. I have 3 save files on my game, and what it is, it'll be like, this one is at 61 hours, this one is at 63 hours, this one's at 67 hours. And then what I do is every time I save, I just save on whichever one is the lowest, so that I'm like, I have backups, so that if one of them crashes, or God forbid 2 of them crash, I have backups that are like 3 or 4 hours apart, so that it's like, oh, okay, I'm losing 3 hours, which is a bummer, but I'm not losing 62 hours, which is detrimental.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. What's nice though is that my Slytherin character, I was able to speed run stuff really quickly, because I knew what was more important at the time versus my first go around, and I was able to get back to where I was, and now farther within like a day and a half. So
when you cut out a lot of the like exploration aspect of it, especially when it's like, oh, I'm not going to hit the arithmancy doors, or I'm not going to I'm not going to go looking for the pages right off the bat. I'll kind of hit them when I hit them, but like I can circle back to that. I want to catch up to the plot, and then I can go in and be like, oh, I need to get the Revelio on the page in front of the One-Eyed Witch or whatever, like Statue of the One-Eyed Witch. That stuff, it's like I can circle back to that stuff, but that's the like completionist stuff that, like, yes, you should aspire to do those, especially on your first playthrough. But for the sake of like, I just want to know where it is. Like, I know that there's a lot of game to come, because where you're talking about right now is like way in my rearview mirror. No offense.
Right.
And you have a lot to go. Like, you have a lot of stuff that, like, I'm a lot farther 65 hours into that, and I'm still unlocking new stuff. I'm like, it's like, oh, hey, here's an addition to this thing. Or actually, we've said spoiler territory. It's like, cool, we've expanded the room of requirement one more time for you. And I'm like, I'm 65 hours into this game. Now I know I'm taking my time and really like lingering and appreciating all the little details, and I could probably crush this out in less time. But that said, like, you have a lot to go.
Yeah, well, to be fair, that recently happened maybe a few days ago. Well, actually, like a week ago. So now I'm a lot far. My Slytherin character is a lot farther than my Ravenclaw one was.
Okay, cool.
So I'm way farther in the story. Like I think I'm maybe halfway through the story, actual story mode.
Give me like an idea of like where you are in the story without heavy spoilers.
Let me think.
So you did you expand the room of requirement yet?
Yeah.
Do you have like Fantastic Beasts?
Yeah, I'm able to upgrade equipment and stuff. I think the last major thing I did was I went with Sebastian to his house.
Oh, like his Hamlet with his sister and everything.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And I'm like investigating stuff.
Yeah. I'll say this. The main storyline is, in my opinion, the least interesting part of this entire thing. Like, I am enjoying like the Sebastian side quest, and I have a feeling based on like what I've seen with the main side quest that the Sebastian stuff is going to tie into the main stuff, because the main story is starting to talk about like removing people's pain and stuff like that, and he's here like exploring the dark arts, being like, I have a sister who's in constant pain, blah blah blah, it would be great if I could take that pain away. And I'm like, these feel like they're going to tie together quite soon.
Yeah. You're not wrong. It does tie in together. But yeah, I'm essentially doing a lot of along with like main story, but Sebastian side quests together. So
yeah, the Sebastian side quest is one of my favorite side quest storylines. I like the Hufflepuff girl who's going against the poachers. I enjoy her.
Poppy.
I'm very bad with names in general, so like I'm probably not going to name them except for Sebastian, whose name I know.
I'm shocked.
And
I'm
Ominous
shocked
Gaunt, because he's got such a good name.
Yeah, I'm surprised that like she's not like a love. Like you can't have like a love interest in the game.
It's funny. I told Bryn that if I could pick a love interest, I'd pick her, because she reminds me of Bryn. she's like a cute little Hufflepuff girl who's like, I want to protect the animals and I'll kill to do it. And I'm like, yeah, it's my wife.
I was just like, I mean, she was kind of already like kind of flirty from the beginning. So I'm like, do you get a love? I was like, do you get a love interest in this game? And then like,
they don't have romance options in this, which I wish there were. I hope that would be a DLC thing at some point. Especially if I think it would be a cool idea to do a Triwizard Tournament DLC. Because it sticks with if they don't want to drop Quidditch right off the bat as a DLC, because everyone's anticipating Quidditch as a DLC, I think it would be a good way to kind of bridge the gap and say, still no Quidditch, but it's because we're doing the Triwizard Tournament, which plays really well into the game aspect of it. And also then you could do the ball, you could do the get a romantic partner, invite them to the ball, etc., etc. You could do all that stuff in a DLC, and I think it would play really well, especially because at the time they were doing it more frequently, and then they stopped doing the Triwizard Tournament for like 150 years before Harry Potter, and then they brought it back for Harry Potter because so I think it would be a cool thing to like back up that you could do and implement into the game that kind of seamlessly plays into that no Quidditch side of things. And then I think at that point it would be cool if they could drop some romance options on us. And it's another also good way to be like,
it's a good way to interactive thing too, though, because they already give you like the option, like depending on how you talk to people, that's how you determine your relationship with the person for the rest of the game. Yeah. So like if you're kind of mean to people, then like if you go to talk to them again, they're kind of like, screw you. You're mean to people.
There's definitely consequences. It's not huge consequences I've noticed. I wish there were some slightly elevated consequences. But I will notice that like a lot of times they'll drop things that are like specifically like, well, you had said blah 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 blah. Or they'll be like, well, if you don't want to do this, then blah 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 blah. Like I've definitely like said mean things to people. Like there was a couple people who I was like, you're just kind of a jerk, and I'm not going to be nice to you. So I was like mean to them, and then they were like mean back to me, which was interesting. And one that was I finished the broom trials to like get your broom upgrades and everything like that.
Mm-hmm.
And the like Slytherin girl who you have to talk to do the races, by the end is very flirty, very flirty. I was like, look, I don't know when I'm being flirted with very well, and I know I'm being flirted with right now. She's like, oh, it's good to see somebody who finally appreciates good flying. We should spend more time together on these courses. And I'm like, that's flirting. I know flirting.
Yeah. So like I think it's just like implement a thing that they could add in but at least I don't know how hard it would be, but you kind of already have the basis of it, so you could kind of just build upon that along with adding in a DLC of like Wizard Tournament or like Quidditch and stuff like that. So
yeah, and I don't think it even needs to be like a full romance where like, you know, you have, this is now my girlfriend, my boyfriend, my partner, my whatever. You could just have it so that they're like, the closer you get to somebody, like it would give an option to be like, oh, you have now crossed a threshold with this person where you have an extra speech option, which is more like okay, like this person you are close with, and like that way, you know, you can leave it as like it doesn't necessarily have to be a romance per se, but it could be like if you're not close with this person, you can't ask them to the Yule Ball. And it's like, oh, cool. Right. But if you are, you get additional speech options. I think that's an easy way to. Well, I don't program, so I can't tell you for sure if that's easy or not. That's what I'm like. That's an easy option, and somebody in some corporate office is like, it's not easy. It's so much programming.
Yeah, some programmers in the corners like shake his head. He
doesn't know anything. That's 30 hours worth of work right there, or more. So anyway. I would appreciate more speech options. You know, what's funny is we talked last week about, or you know, one of the previous episodes on this podcast about the fact that like people just disappear at night and they don't, and I've started to see that mirrored in other influencers, content creators, whatever you want to call them, where they're like, it's not that it's the game is amazing. It is because it is amazing and because it is so detailed that it is so glaringly obvious that you can't like sit down or interact with like furniture, which you would think when you have a room that you can specifically design yourself, and also like benches and chairs everywhere that you can't. It was just a weird choice to not have that interaction happen. And then the people missing thing, where it's like, you would think that in a game where like people have like certain characters will walk the same path every day, like depending on the time of day, that you can find your professor in their room, or you can find them in the Great Hall. Like you can literally follow people around and they have like a pattern. So it's very weird to just have them like poof out of existence. Like you would think they would just design it that like by the end of the night, and some can. Like I'm not saying that every single NPC who walks around the school at any given time has to be in a bed. I'm just saying like it would make sense that it's like at a certain time of day they would all just like go up to the dorm rooms, and then like, you know, then you just put a person in each bed, and like my brain is satisfied with that. Like even if the numbers don't add up, where it's like, well, actually walking around the campus is like several thousand students, and yet there's only 4 beds and 4 rooms, so that's not the same amount of people. I don't care. Just put a person in a bed.
Yeah. And also, like, I kind of like wanted a little bit more of like a mini game aspect. Well, I mean, you already do like mini games with like the ball roll game and stuff like that. But I mean, like, if you're in your con room, you can sit down and play like wizard's chess with someone.
That would be a good touch.
I think that'd be cool. Because then you can like actually experience like wizard's chess. Like the chess pieces interacting with each other and doing some like cool action. I mean, it's just like little things that like how good the game is. There's like these little things that I feel like maybe we could get in like a DLC patch or something like that make the game even like better, to enhance like the wizarding world a little bit more than we get right now. But again, it's not going to make or break the game because of how cool the spell aspect and do the missions and side quests are is overall fun.
And I think there's a lot of stuff in the game. That's why I give them more leeway. I mean, the thing is, with these reviews that we're doing, I don't know about you, I would rate this game somewhere between a 9 and a 10, and like firmly in that spot. The stuff that I'm critiquing, the people disappearing at night, the not being able to sit down in chairs, adding in stuff like wizard's chess, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Those are all things that would just push it even closer to a perfect 10, and it's pretty close. So like at this point it's nitpicky, because it's like you're absolutely right. If they had like they have a wizard's chess board that you'll see, like some students will just have it out, it would be cool to be able to sit down and challenge someone to wizard's chess or stuff like that. It would be cool to have people in beds at night. It would be cool to be able to lay in your bed and have it be like, would you like to switch time of day from day to night like you can from the math aspect of it? Things like that are just little enhancements that they could do to enhance the game. But there is so much to do in this game. Like finding all of the stuff out in the world, the astronomy tables, the Merlin trials, the Depulso puzzles within the castle where you find a spot and it does all that. There's so much stuff in there that I want to 100 this game. I want to complete everything that this game has to give me. Not just the side quests and the quests, but also the puzzles and the finding all the spots and the stopping all the things and, you know, doing all of the aspects of the game. And I know it's going to take me a long time. I'm probably going to build a second character before I 100% this game, because it's going to get to a nitpicky situation where it's like you have 4 Merlin trials left and I can't find them, or I'm trying to do this Depulso puzzle and I'm just, because apparently this is something I found out later, but I think you already know at this point, is that like different houses have different side quests. So like,
I was actually about to mention that.
Yeah, so like the Ravenclaw house got apparently shortchanged really hard on the like side quests, which is like such a bummer, because most people I know fall into the Ravenclaw or like wanted to play Ravenclaw right off the bat. So as a Ravenclaw, I'm super bummed. I didn't realize things like if you're playing, I think Hufflepuff, you get to go to Azkaban. It's brief and it's not like a huge in-depth thing, but like that's still something I don't get. Slytherin, I think, gets to go do. There's something Slytherin house gets to do that's like not. I think they get to go into the Chamber of Secrets at some point.
Chamber of Secrets, or you get to see like something like that. I think so. Well, I was actually about to mention that because me playing as a Slytherin now, and I got to a certain point as a Ravenclaw that like I was doing a quest. It was the quest where you got to go into the Forbidden Forest, and then like you find the map room, the map chamber room for the first time. Mm-hmm. But to get from the Ravenclaw side to do it, you had to like collect the statues in the owl tower, and like blah blah. Then you meet the ghost, and like you go do it. Whereas a Slytherin, I had to meet one of the house elves of I think. Of a Slytherin family. But like when it happened, I was like, is this a side quest that I didn't do before? And then like after I finished the quest, you see the ghost. I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot. Like once you like the story isn't 100% aligned the same.
Yeah,
as like
which
if I'm a Ravenclaw, Gryffindor, or Hufflepuff, which
like
makes
kind
it
of
unique.
Crazy territory. There aren't a lot of games that don't just like give you the illusion of option or the illusion of difference, where it's like this is still technically the illusion of difference, but like you are getting a different experience in each house, which is crazy to me. Like, yes, the through line of the main story is the same for the most part. But the fact that there's not only different side quests, but different ways of getting there, like doing this, and then the Ravenclaws doing this, and it's just everybody, like you're hitting the same points, but you're getting to them differently, which is crazy to me that they went through and did that 4 different ways, because this game is crazy in depth as it is. To redo it or to change it in 4 different ways for each house is really impressive, and something that I really appreciate as a gamer.
So it kind of gives me the vibes of like, do you ever play the Telltale series games?
I've played a little bit of them, not a ton, but where it'll be like,
so
and so will remember that.
yeah. Like I played a lot of the. I played the Batman ones, which was a 2-game series. I think they might make a third one. I'm not for sure, but it kind of gives like So no matter, you may make a choice, right, in the game, but there's only so many choices that you make that it ends up going to the same linear ending anyways. If you've never played them. So throughout like the middle, like the beginning to middle, and then maybe the beginning to the end of the game, no matter what choice you make, yeah, you might get a different story on how it's played out, but it inevitably ends the same way, which is kind of a bummer. But that's kind of how I'm getting the vibes of this game, where it's not a bummer, but like no matter if you're a Gryffindor, Slytherin, Ravenclaw, or Hufflepuff, you may have certain quests to navigate you through this story. It's still the same story, but how you get to that story, the ending of the story, is a little bit different.
Yeah, and I think that, so I'm glad you mentioned Telltale games. So I used to play the Telltale Game of Thrones games because I was really excited because I knew Telltale had a reputation for, so-and-so will remember this, so-and-so won't like this, so-and-so now does like this. And so I played one of the Game of Thrones games, and I made a choice, and it like went really badly. And I was like, oh no! It's minor spoilers. Like you have like a little brother character, and like the what's his Ramsay Shacklebolt or Ramsay? No, that's a Harry Potter thing. Ramsay
Bolton.
Ramsay Bolton shows up and is like, blah blah blah. If you don't do this, then I'm gonna take your little brother. And you have like multiple options of how to handle it. And the option I picked, he was like, oh, well then I'm just gonna kill him. And he just like kills him right there. And I was like, oh no. So I was like, I'm gonna restart the game. And I restarted the game and I picked the other option that was available, and he kills him anyway. And it was like that. That's what I mean by the illusion of choice. Now, technically, the Harry Potter game is doing the illusion of choice, but the way they do it feels more satisfying. Because the thing is, if you feel like, so if the illusion of choice is, for Ravenclaws, you have to do this puzzle and then talk to the ghost, and then the ghost leads you there. Whereas Slytherin, you talk to the house elf leads you to the same place. That is approaching things and getting, that's how real life works. Some people will do things the puzzle way to figure it out. Some people will ask people and figure it out. Some people will whatever. Yeah. And you're getting to the same point, but it makes sense thematically with like the Ravenclaw will do a puzzle. The Slytherin will talk to a house elf. The Gryffindor might just stumble through the woods and figure it out because they're brave enough to just know that it's in the Forbidden Forest and they have to walk there. Like, the Hufflepuff might be recommended by another Hufflepuff. Hey, I actually heard about this place because they're very friend heavy. Or they get really high and they just stumble through the woods. That's also a Hufflepuff thing. So that is thematically satisfying. And they changed the dialogue accordingly. Whereas the other one, the Telltale game, when I was doing the Game of Thrones game, it didn't change anything. I was given a choice, and then no matter what choice I was given, maybe there was a slight dialogue change for the first line. So it might be like, oh no, I totally worship you, Lord Ramsay. You are, you're the leader. And he's like, and in fact, to show that I'm the leader, and kills his brother. Whereas if you're like, no, I don't respect you, then he's like, I'll teach you to respect me. And then he kills your brother and moves on. So no matter what you're doing, you're kind of shoehorned into this ending. Whereas even though that's technically happening with Hogwarts Legacy, it feels more appropriate, and it doesn't feel like you are necessarily like your decision didn't matter.
It's like
builds off.
So
the
Telltale series, the Telltale series is like, it gives you the illusion. Like I said, it has to get you to the end of how they have it written. So it gives you the illusion of choice. Where this isn't the illusion of choice. It's just a different. No matter whatever house you are, it gives you the ability to go different paths. So that way you don't feel like if you go to play it again as a different character,
it doesn't feel stale.
It doesn't feel stale, exactly. So it was really cool. It was really different, but it confused the shit out of me when I was doing it, because it was like, you have to come see me, blah blah blah. I'm like, all right. And like I do this like mission where you have to go find like a secret. It was a secret grotto of like an old Slytherin family's like grotto that they had on campus, and like find an old heirloom for the house elf to give to, because it was the house elf of Professor Black, And it was like something that his families had. I guess his family. It was an heirloom of his family. So I had to find it, but I couldn't. It was gone, so I couldn't find it. But he's like, "All right, well, this is the information you should go do for the quest, blah blah, and hopefully you have better luck than me." And blah, blah, blah. So it was really cool because I was like, it made me was like, oh, I've never done this before. So even though I was like trying to get back to where I was, but it just put me in a different way of doing it. So I was like, I was interested in doing what I was doing again.
It slowed you down in a good way. Like you were ready to just pound, get, let's just knock out these quests rapid fire. And then it's like, hey, you're actually experiencing something different. And you're like, okay, I'm still going to, push through this as quickly as I possibly can. Yeah. But when it gets to stuff like that, I'll slow down a little bit. I'll take my time. Yeah. I'll enjoy it because it's new to you. So you're like, cool, let me do this new stuff. And that's how you end up appreciating a game and playing it through multiple times, is knowing that like there are technically 4 versions of this game in this game. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you haven't played the game yet, look forward to that. That if you play as a Ravenclaw, Gryffindor, Hufflepuff, or Slytherin, that you and your friends may not have the fully same experience because they're all different. So you get to play multiple times and still be amazed by the game.
Yeah, I'm really proud. Remember how I told you I was trying to memorize the castle as best I could?
Yeah.
So I've gotten to the point now where I can get from the Great Hall to all of the common room entrances, even though I can't get into all of the common rooms. But I know them by sight. Like, I know where the Hufflepuff common room, where the Slytherin common room, and where the Gryffindor common room is.
So what's kind of weird is that, like, I found the Gryffindor common room by accident, and it's not too far from the Slytherin room. Slytherin
They're all relatively close to the Great Hall.
They're really close to each other. Yeah, exactly. Which was weird, though, because in the movie, it seemed like they traveled a great distance to get to their common rooms. But, like, literally, the Gryffindor one's like, you go out the door, go up these set of stairs, and then it's, like, right there.
So
I'm like, what?
Leave, I can tell you, because I've got it memorized now. You leave out of what helps me memorize it is there's a line in Harry Potter, the books, where he talks about how the Hufflepuffs and the Slytherins come from down, and the Ravenclaws and the Gryffindors come from up. Like, so when they're coming from the Great Hall, or like coming for lunch or whatever, the Gryffindors and the Slytherins come down to the Great Hall from the stairs, and the Hufflepuffs and the Slytherins come up. So there is a point when, if you're leaving the Great Hall and you swing a left, like you're heading towards the big spiral staircase that like goes all the way up, the Gryffindors and Ravenclaws, there are 2 sets of stairs, one that goes up and one that goes down. If you go up, you're heading towards the Gryffindors, and if you're heading down, you're heading towards the Hufflepuffs and the Slytherins. So if you're going to Gryffindor, you go up, you head like you're about to go up the great staircase that like appears and moves and everything, but instead of going up them, you can just kind of like go around like the big pillar, and then you go left towards the statue of the one-eyed witch with the hump. Go all the way down, and then there's like a set of stairs. You go up those set of stairs, and it's really up like 1 floor. So it's over where near Mr. Moon is, where he's like where he waits for you. If you go past him, and then go up those stairs, the Gryffindor common room is up there. And then I found out that if you...
like...
Sorry.
Sorry.
I was just going to say...
I was saying how weird... God damn it.
Go.
Okay, what's up? Okay. I was saying how weird it was, how close the Gryffindor common room was to the teachers' facilities.
The hall is named like the faculty wing or something like that. And so I was just thinking about how like fucking Gryffindors have to just like walk by. Like, of course the teachers' pets are like walking by them every time. Also, that I feel like the teachers did that on purpose, because they're like, let's be honest, the Gryffindors and the Slytherins are most likely to sneak out at night. So we'll make the Slytherin common room a banger, and we'll put, so that they don't leave, and we'll put the Gryffindors just right next to the teachers so we can keep an eye on them.
Yeah. Dude, the Slytherin common room, I don't know if you've seen it like in videos or pictures. It is awesome.
I've seen some pictures and some like demo videos of them, but I haven't like obviously explored it myself. There is at one point where you take this is spoilers, so be aware. There is a portion where you take Polyjuice Potion. I'm not going to say to do who or what, so I'll keep it as best I can. But you take Polyjuice Potion to become like a person of authority in the castle, and I was like, I wonder if I can get into the common rooms because I am disguised as somebody of authority. and like I'm not a student. And, like, will the thing? So I again, this was right around the time where I memorized where all the entrances to the common rooms are, and I went to each of them individually, and it didn't let me in any of them. I was like, oh, it would have been such a good touch.
Yeah, I really wanted to see because like I actually went up to the fat lady, and I wanted to just
Interact.
see, see if it interacted with me and see if it would. I wish they could add that in there. Like you could take polyjuice potions and then like
Slip in.
Like make it hard though. Like you to get a polyjuice potion, you need to like collect so many herbs and so many of this for you to make one vial of polyjuice.
Yeah, like
so that way
make
you
it
can...
make it like really difficult herbs, and then make the potion brewing in your common room like they normally take like a minute to 3 minutes. Make it like an hour long potion or longer. You could even do like a 24-hour where like you have to like if I'm putting that in real time on a Thursday, I won't be able to do it until Friday. But and you can only like have one at a time. You can't brew multiple. Like you can only brew one, and then like it has because I mean like the parameters of the spell in the books is that it takes a 30-day cycle. So like maybe that's the thing is like you have to do it, and it takes like a full 30 days, or like for the sake of games maybe like 1 week or something like that, like in real time. And then, like, it only lasts for literally you get, like, a 15-minute counter or something like that. And it's like, cool, you have a small... And so it's like, yeah, you can do whatever you want in that time if you want to go. Because, like, in theory, the other common rooms exist in this game. In fact, I've done the Revelio right next to the Slytherin common room. And I can see a chest that's on the other side of the wall. And I'm like, that's a fucking tease.
Oh, dude, that's so
yeah.
up.
So I'm like, in theory, I feel like they exist in the game. I just can't access them. So it would be really cool to be able to find a way, like with Polyjuice Potion, to access them, even if it's not long term. Especially now knowing that like your specific common room doesn't. There's nothing extra you get from that common room.
Yeah.
Like technically, you get the
house chest,
with the like the
tokens.
Flies, what is the word?
Keys.
I'm thinking of? The keys. Thank you, the Daedalian keys. Which, by the way, if you haven't gotten that, the Ravenclaw one is.
I'm almost done. The Slytherin one.
It's gorgeous. I've seen the Hufflepuff one because Bryn got hers, and it's okay. But the Ravenclaw one, because it's a deep blue with like a bronze. Also, when I cast spells, the outline of the Ravenclaw logo glows. So like when I do like
I hear the house robes, like the ones you get from those, is the best house robe you can get in the game. From what
I changed my outfit somewhat regularly. In fact, usually what I was doing is that when I would do a quest outside the castle, I would put on like armored gear or like what looks like fighting stuff, and then when I would go back into the castle, I would put on more like Hogwartsy robes specifically because when I'm in school, I want to look like I'm a Hogwarts character. But when I'm like killing poachers, I don't want to be wearing like my school uniform. So I would switch it up. Now I just leave on that Ravenclaw one. It's so pretty, and I'm like, yeah, I'm still your death, but like I'm gonna do it in school robes.
yeah. So I wanted to get on. I want to talk about something other than Hogwarts Legacy. I wanted to actually
no.
It's going to be a very interesting time for movies in the next few years. I don't follow much of Marvel, really, but it looks like Ant-Man and the Wasp, the Kang the Conqueror, looks very interesting to me.
Yeah.
That whole arc, I don't know much about it. Do you know much about Kang the Conqueror at all?
I know about Kang the Conqueror, so like, it's funny because I always say that I don't have firsthand knowledge of a lot of the stuff, but what I do is I watch a lot of YouTube videos. I watch a lot of shout out to Screen Crush. Is usually one of my like nerdy. They do a lot of breakdown, Easter eggs, and theory videos. I watch a lot of TikToks. Straw Hat Goofy is one of the guys I will listen to about stuff like that. And so I get a lot of my knowledge that way. So I don't have like good, like I didn't read the comics, but I am aware of what's happening because all of that information is given to me via like when they do these explainer videos. They're like, here's something you should know about Kang from the comics. So like I learn it that way. So as the thing about Kang that I've learned is that he is a time traveler from the future who took technology back in time to conquer it. And there's a bunch of different Kangs because of the multiverse. So, like, one version of Kang went back to, like, Egypt and became, like, a pharaoh conqueror there. And then another one came from the future and went into, like, our time with the Avengers and everything. But basically, there's a bunch of different versions of Kang because of how often he bounces through time and the multiverse.
Gotcha. So, like, the whole Ant-Man and the Wasp movie with Kang the Conqueror, I shouldn't understand because of him going into, like, the quantum realm, where I guess the quantum realm, correct me if I'm wrong, is, like, the smallest, like, micro, or, like, I guess as down to, like, the atom size.
Like, smaller than that, from what I understand.
It's
literally called the microverse.
Okay. And, like, he's living, so he, like, this guy conquers, I guess, the microverse. With technology, like, am I correct or wrong?
Yeah, so it sounds. I mean, and again, take this with a grain of salt. I haven't seen Ant-Man yet, so I'm probably gonna wait for streaming on it because I've heard mixed reviews. I've heard some people saying that it's okay. I've heard some people saying that it's good, but it's getting bad reviews. I've heard some people say that it's justified in those reviews. So I haven't decided if I'm gonna go see it in theaters or not, or if I'm gonna just wait for streaming on it. It seems like it is the gist, the nutshell version of everything I've heard put together is it's a decent movie. It lacks a lot of what Ant-Man 1 and 2 did in terms of, like, comedy style, being a more grounded Marvel show. And even though, like, you know, he's still got, like, a suit with powers, he himself is not like he's not Thor, he's not Captain Marvel, he's not, he is a guy in a suit who's just trying to better his life as much as possible. And I think that's where this final movie kind of changes a little bit, because it seems like the movie starts out with him being more like, hey, I did my superhero thing, and now I'm just trying to, like, milk it with, like, books and podcasts, and, like, I was always just trying to provide a better life for my family anyway, so we did the big hero thing, and I'm just going to take the coasting route from here. And then he gets thrust into a situation where he has to be the hero. He's the only hero. And that's when, facing Kang and all that. The one of the valid criticisms that I've heard, and I guess this is technically spoiler territory. Do we want to dip into spoilers at all? It's been out for a week, maybe, technically.
Maybe not.
Okay. I can spoiler free this for sure. But
there's a question I want to ask you after you're done.
Okay. So the question is, why put Kang in the Ant-Man movie as, like, a way to, like he's already been in Loki, the show, as He Who Remains, the last of the Kangs. And why put him in this movie rather than making him, like, an Avengers level bad guy? I mean, and he is an Avengers level bad guy. There's literally going to be an Avengers Kang Dynasty movie. But it was just very interesting for, like, at this point, why introduce him here where the stakes are lower and he's less likely to get the attention and the writing and the everything that he needs. Now, the people involved in the movie, Paul Rudd, and I can't remember the guy whose name plays Kang the Conqueror off the top of my head, but everybody killed it. Jonathan Majors, he is crushing it as Kang the Conqueror. He's an amazing actor. He was a slam dunk. Fun fact, he's 33. I don't know why I didn't realize that we were the same age, but, like, man, that really puts your life in perspective when you're like, cool, this guy is the next Avengers level bad guy for the next decade, probably, maybe less than a decade, but certainly 5 years. And you're like, oh yeah, I followed a TPS report earlier. It was really just a double check.
Yeah, you can't. Well, I mean, you can't compare. Like, small side note. I mean, that's like when Manny Machado was, like, with the Orioles, and he was, like, 21, and he's in the major leagues making $1 million contract, and I was working at a mortgage company making, low wage. So I'm like, whatever.
Yeah. So it makes you feel better. To add to that, I went to high school with someone who ended up on the Orioles, and, like, when he debuted on the Orioles years ago, I was like, yeah, that really puts stuff in perspective. like I'm out here, like, I'm like, oh, I moved up one position from my entry level job, and it's like, starting for the Orioles, number 35, Steve Lamanazzi, and I'm like, okay, yep, I'm at a baseball game that you play at with the money that I could barely afford the ticket for from my 9 to 5 job, and I'm happy to have it. So anyway, that's just very funny. But no, going back to the movie side of things. Yeah, it seems like if you like sci-fi and you generally like Paul Rudd and his sense of humor, you'll enjoy this movie just fine. I've also been told that if you are a consistent Marvel fan, then it's a better movie. It because there's so much context to it that you know. So there's so much happening from the shows and from previous movies that if you are up to date on your Marvel everything, then it is a much better movie-going experience than those of you who are casual Marvel goers who are going to be confused and have some questions about what's going on here. Who is this guy? Why does he matter? Why should I be so threatened by him? Because there's more context to fill in.
Gotcha. So, I mean, I'll probably watch it because this arc seems very interesting, which I might just to humor myself, I might just rewatch a lot of the Marvel movies so I can kind of get my idea where I'm looking at. But I wanted to ask you this question. So, do you think I saw this meme where Marvel Studio? It was this thing where it said like one guy was like Marvel Studios, and he was like it was like all like nice and proper standing up, and then it had like DC next to him, and he was like his face was like all squished in like he got his ass kicked. And then, like, below it, it shows DC, where he's all, like, proper and his suit's standing up because of all the projects that are coming out with James Gunn and everything. And then it shows Marvel with his face smashed in. Because, not saying that Marvel was doing crap stuff, but it just seems like a lot of people, they're getting a lot of mixed reviews with a lot of, I guess, comic book people. Because of, I guess, they were used to, like, you know, the Steve Rogers with Tony Stark and all of them with the original Avengers, and like how that arc built up so much, and like how everything now isn't maybe not to what they are used to. So I want to ask you, do you think Marvel can continue to either elevate, or do you think they peaked when they had Steve Rogers, Tony Stark, Thor, and all of them as like the core Avengers who built this big thing with Thanos? Do you think they can continue to have that ride, or do you think it might kind of come down and it won't come back unless they are able to somehow bring back Steve and Tony or something like that?
It's a good question. So I certainly think that they have a peak from Endgame. I think that it's very easy to say they've peaked. I think that there are. I feel perfectly confident that Marvel has many more stories to tell, and that they're going to be really good, really enjoyable stories. However, they might just not be mainstream as much because I mean, the thing about comics in general. If I'm telling you one story from a comic, yeah, it's really interested to be on the hook for, you know, a movie comes out once a year, you know, Thor this year, Captain America next year, Iron Man this year. And then we've gotten to a point, I think that COVID threw things off a little bit. Certainly in terms of like timing, because Spider-Man was supposed to come out before Doctor Strange. There was a lot of rewrites that happened. Then Chadwick Boseman passed away, and I think they were building the new Avengers around him as kind of the leader. And then he passed away, and now they're kind of leaderless. And I think they might do Shang-Chi. I think they might do somebody else as a leader. They might try to bring somebody back. You know, they're kind of scrambling for the first time to deal with not only the end of their main arc has ended, and now they're trying to do another arc, which is fine in my opinion. I trust them, and they've, you know, it's funny because people will look back on the MCU and say, see, phase 4, not easily the worst phase, but then I'm like, okay, but go back to phase 1. You know, people say, oh, well, I can't see where it's going. I know Kang is the big bad, but it's just taking forever to get there. And I'm like,
sure.
You have to realize that, first of all, there is more content in phase 4, which has lasted, a couple years, Um, it started right around COVID, and now it's coming to an end, or just came to an end. So that's a 2-year period. There was literally more hours in Phase 4, in the small Phase 4, than all of Phase 1 through 3. And that opens you up to more critique and more criticism. But it's not a bad thing. I think what's happening is people say that there's a lot of superhero fatigue, and there might be. But I also just think that now everybody's paying attention to it. It had to earn people in Phase 1, Phase 2, Phase 3. And then once they got, it's like, the Marvel movies. And Phase 1, people were like, yeah, go watch Iron Man. Thor's not very good. I mean, a lot of Phase 1 movies were fine. They certainly could have been done better, but there were a lot of origin stories. But I think people look back with people who don't have as much superhero backgrounding are coming in and experiencing it for the first time, and then the story was told. Endgame was over, and now they're checked out and they're burnt out because it took 10 years to get there, and that's valid. If you're done and want to be done after Endgame, that's totally okay. But in my opinion, the more hardcore comic book fans who will want to see all of their favorite things be adapted are going to be the one. So I could see the MCU maybe not fizzling necessarily, but losing some of its luster, going more to streaming, and then having their big movies be movies. So doing some of the, the new Captain America show, it's going to be a show like we did with Falcon and the Winter Soldier, where like the new Captain America was kind of dawned. That's going to be, I think, more of the future. Is we're going to put some of this on high quality streaming TV. It's a 9-episode thing rather than a 3-hour movie, so that they can build more attachment to these characters. You can feel more, you get to spend more time with them and stuff like that. But I do think that a lot of the mainstream people who weren't superhero fans or comic book fans going into this are going to be a little checked out at this point. And then you get the toxic side of the comic book community, who it's like, okay, cool, now we're going to do more people of color. We're going to do a teenage girl. This is, instead of being the point, shoot, explode style of superhero shows, or superhero movies, I should say, it's going to be more comedy. Like, hey, She-Hulk is going to be more comedy based. She-Hulk is going to be more for women. And I think that there's a lot of dude bros out there who are like, they didn't blow up a single thing, and I have to listen to a woman talk about her period? No! Like, I think that so I think that's where they start to lose it, because mainstream people, some are carrying over and they're continuing with the MCU, but some of them are ready to put it down after Endgame, because that was the conclusion to the Phase 1 through 4. That was the most casual fans got hooked on the Infinity Saga, which is, there are shiny rocks that give you special powers, and there's a guy who wants to wipe out half the universe. It's very easy, it's very digestible. Now we're getting into like, there's a guy from the multiverse, and technically there's millions of versions of him, and this one is an Egyptian pharaoh, but they're all from the same. It's very convoluted, and so they're taking a big leap of faith to say, like, hey, we are now, you're here, and if you're here, then hang on. We've got some cool stuff to tell you, some really cool stuff, some great stories to tell. But they're losing some of their casual audience who don't want to commit as much time. And then they're also losing a lot of the dude bros who, even though these characters have existed in the comics for years, and, women of power, people of color of power, kids of power, people who are not just standard 30 to 50-year-old white man with superpowers or big strong muscles or incredible intelligence. Those, hey, we're getting into black women with power, and Muslim women, teenagers of power, and just women of in general. I mean, all of these minorities are now getting spoken on, and I think that there's a lot of people who, whether they want to admit it to themselves or not, don't empathize as well when it's not somebody that they look like or relate to. I think that there's a lot of that. And so, I saw a lot of complaining. It's so funny when I see memes all the time that was like, here's where the MCU started, and here's where the MCU is here today. And it'll be like a peak moment from Endgame or Iron Man. And then they'll compare it against like a post-credit scene for She-Hulk. And I'm like, well, you're not comparing the same thing. She-Hulk is a comedy show from a women's perspective about what women deal with. And then you're taking big, massive explosion while Iron Man blows up a tank. It's like, those are not the same thing. You're comparing a comedy movie to an action explosion movie. And like, that's what the MCU has gotten to, is they're like, cool, now that we've got you hooked and you've seen the cool stuff, I think that you are now going to see a lot more of like, okay, people are superhero fatigued, then we're going to give them a superhero detective style show, and we're going to give them a superhero comedy show, and we're going to give them a superhero romance show, and not just like superhero romance where it's like, I fell in love with the girl who was closest to me. Isn't that romantic? But like genuine romance, and they're going to dive deeper on issues about, I mean, comics have literally since day one always been about showing us the flaws in our society. There's an old Superman comic about like, just make sure to knock those Nazis out. And it's like Superman talking about it. If they did that now, if they did like a whole, like, don't forget to punch a Nazi, they would be like, oh, the MCU goes woke. The MCU goes. It's like everybody, the problem is everybody's going to have, when you take the internet as a collective, there's always going to be problems, because there's always going to be somebody in a group of people. I mean, it's the same reason why I don't like generalized statement. Oh, men are like this, women are like this. Oh, because then it's like, well, the internet's saying this. Well, the internet is made up of millions of people with widely varying views on things, and there's going to be complaints. So as they move forward and they start to tell stories, I mean, I remember I tweeted this out right after the end of She-Hulk, because so many people were complaining about like She-Hulk and like how it's not setting proper expectation for women, and or like how it's heavily woman view and it's woke entertainment and stuff like that. And it's like, I remember tweeting out and I was like, just to get ahead of it, because what happens is they say that there's going to be a She-Hulk show, then everybody, all the incel nerds who are just hate women, I'm like, they're gonna just hate on this now, and then they pretend like it's a new thing, like, oh, She-Hulk is addressing women's views for the first time because Disney's going woke, when like every comic since like the 60s has been talking about it. It's just that you didn't consume that media, and so now you're acting like it's new when it's not. So I remember tweeting out, before this even comes out, let's just get ahead of it. X-Men is about homophobia and racism and anti-Semitism. Those three things are what X-Men is about. It is about different type of people who aren't doing anything wrong, but were born differently, and the world hates them for it. So just be aware of it now. It is the themes of racism, homophobia, and anti-Semitism are gonna be in there. It's not new woke content. They've been doing this for years, since World War II.
Well, it's the fact is that like it was never really like what you were saying about X-Men. The whole premise of it is built off of those concepts, but I guess they weren't really I guess you overlook that, right? Because you're just absorbing the thing.
Sure.
But then once someone like brings out the thing that it's supposed to be built off of, they're like, "Whoa, wait a minute."
Yeah,
what are you talking
it
about?
is the fact that a lot of people, so the people who consume this media earlier, either didn't realize it because they're standing on top of the mine, but don't realize that it's about to explode. Like you've got your finger on it, you're on the point, but you haven't quite figured it out yet, which is like, hey, and so they kind of have to like hit you in the head with it sometimes. I mean, like, like again, X-Men is about people who were born differently and are hated by the community around them because it makes them nervous. And like, obviously that's wrapped in like, oh, well, they do it in the X-Men movies where they're like, well, there's one girl who can run through walls. What's to stop her from blah, 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 blah. But it's all wrapped up in the same hating people thing. Like, it's all wrapped up in like, this person is different than me. And I will, like, even in X-Men, a constant theme is like, well, if you get a cure, then I'll accept you, because then you'll be just like me. It's the same thing as assimilating. If you act like me as a white man, then I will be more tolerant of you, even if we're kind of different from each other. Or if you like take this cure so that you can be more like me, then I'll be accepting of you. But if you don't, then, well, you had the option to. Like, why would you want to be yourself when you could be more like me? And like those
Right.
things are going to be prevalent in those three categories that I keep mentioning, which is homophobia, racism, and anti-Semitism. Like those
Yeah.
things are going to be very prevalent because when the X-Men inevitably comes to the MCU, there's going to be a whole Fox News, Disney goes woke, the MCU goes woke, and it's like, if you want to call it woke, that's fine. You can, I think it's a dumb insult, but if you want to say that it is woke and I don't like it for that reason, you're stupid. But it's, to me, it is when they say like, this is new. They're going woke. And I'm like, they've been telling this story for 60 years, 70 years.
Yeah.
Like, it's not new.
Yeah, so the only reason I was wondering, back to the point what I was saying is like I'm disconnected from Marvel in general. Like I don't follow it like true Marvel fans. I am a superhero person, so like I was at least following it from like the first arc, and I was just like looking at like a lot of the Ant-Man trailers and the whole Kang the Conqueror thing. So I'm like thinking about it, and me being so disconnected from it, I was just thinking to myself. And this is not me hating like DC's going to be better. Like it's just me generally having a question. Just like, are they able to bring other characters that were so, I guess, so
Beloved,
big, yeah, loved and big, especially Robert Downey Jr. and as Iron Man and like Captain America, and they were like such a big iconic part of the team, to where now they're not a part of it. It just like I didn't know like is there a way for them to have that same
emphasis,
cohesive?
So I think absolutely, because most people don't realize this, but the Avengers team that we got, especially in the first couple arcs where it was, Thor, Iron Man, Captain America, Black Widow, Hawkeye, they weren't like the big names, because most of their biggest names were signed over to Sony. So like Spider-Man was one of their biggest names. The X-Men is one of their biggest names. There's a lot of properties that they like sold that Marvel sold the rights to before the MCU really got up and running. And we're only now starting to see those contracts expire, like we are with like Deadpool coming over. And I think that there was that merger that really helped and everything. But so I for example, Guardians of the Galaxy is like, if I say Guardians of the Galaxy now, it's like a no-brainer. Yeah, everyone loves Guardians of the Galaxy. It's they're beloved characters. Before the movies came out, Guardians of the Galaxy was like an obscure comic book name that like those characters very rarely got involved. And I think that of those of the like Guardians that they have there, those weren't even like the most popular iterations of the Guardians of the Galaxy. It's just that the casting department, the writing department, everybody who built the Iron Man. I mean, Iron Man and Captain America were like, Captain America is obviously like a big name, but Iron Man wasn't like a huge comic book. I mean, again, take this with a grain of salt because I didn't grow up on comics, but I do listen, and from what I've heard, those characters weren't like their big blockbuster names. They just turned them into blockbuster people, into characters that you invest in and that you care about. So as in terms of like moving forward, I think they're going to get better and stronger. It's just a matter of staying with that casting, of casting the right person, not a big name just because they're a big name, but actually somebody who hits the role perfectly, which Marvel is very good at. And I think that we're going to start to get those, Wolverines, the X-Men, Spider-Man more frequently. Those big characters are going to start to come over, and at the right time, because I think that James Gunn is going to do wonders for the DCU, and I think he's going to do the same thing, where he's going to take characters like Guardians of the Galaxy from from Marvel, where he took a group of people who were relatively unknown, or a comic book line that was relatively unknown, and is able to establish new characters. So I think it's important that we get Superman and Batman and the big names, the ones we know, the Justice League.
Yeah.
But I think that like Blue Beetle is getting
he's getting a movie.
And the Green Lantern Corps is going to be explored more in depth of the actual lantern cores,
The core, yeah.
cores, because I know that they have like green, blue, red, yellow, you know, all the rainbow. I think that there's a great storyline there for the whole Black Lantern storyline, and then White Lantern storyline. I think that DCU is about to bring their A game, because I think James Gunn is going to see what. I mean, he's a fan of comics, and I have said this consistently throughout this podcast. It takes fans of the thing to create a good version of the thing, and if you're just throwing in the producer corporate Hollywood BS that has followed so many projects previous to this, especially in the DCU or DCEU, that's where you get like a really like the Fantastic Four is a misfire on. The Fantastic Four is one of the biggest MCU or Marvel franchises that you could have brought those characters in, but they sold them to Sony before they were the MCU, and they had to wait for the contracts to expire and for them the merger to happen, everything like that. And even now they're like waiting a while to get into it. And I think that is going to be one of their like staple people. I think that they do the Fantastic Four, and I think that Reed Richards leads the Avengers going forward. Stuff like that. That's why I think that Marvel still got plenty in the tank. You just have to be patient and realize that like COVID, especially because people have said like, well, we got a lot of content in Phase 4. It was a lot of TV shows. Then it was basically TV show, 3 weeks later movie, 3 weeks later TV show, 3 weeks later movie, and like that was because of COVID. And they've even come out and said, we're going to slow down on the content. You're still going to get shows, you're still going to get movies, but it's not going to be like a back-to-back situation. But because COVID was happening, and it was like, well, how do we continue making money during this time that people don't want to go out in theaters? Well, let's give them a lot of TV shows to watch because they're stuck in their house anyway. And so I think that now that we're through COVID, or mostly through COVID. You know, you say you're through COVID, and then somebody will always say, "Well, you didn't hear about the new strain," and I'm like, "Yeah." But now that we have built a structure to handle COVID, and it is more commonplace, and people are returning to social interactions and public events and stuff like that, I think we're going to see less stuff. Which does make me sad. I do want more TV shows because I think it allows you to connect with characters well, but I think that there was a COVID shuffle that was happening, which is like, how do we handle what's happening while also producing content, while also dealing with a timeline that is now messed up because this filmed here and then this has to be released here, but then this person passed away, so we had to refilm this. And there was definitely like a shuffle happening. And I think if people just shut up and enjoy what's in front of them, this is ultimately how I feel about Ant-Man, which is, I don't think Ant-Man is a bad movie, but I think that anything after Endgame is going to be hard. I think that anything after the final act of a 15-year movie phase is going to be what people compare it to, and that's difficult and not necessarily fair, because and this is where it's valid if you want to check out at this point. If the Infinity Saga is what had you and you want to put it down there, that's totally okay. But that said, give them some time, because Phase 1 was meh. It had its shining stars, and looking back on it with rose-colored glasses, there are certainly great moments to pick out. Phase 2 was okay. It got better. Phase 3 was when they really hit their gear and really gunned it. And now we're kind of starting over. This is Phase 4 is Phase 1. It's like, you know when you beat Super Mario Bros. And then they start you again, but harder? You have to realize you're starting again. So, like, yeah, you have established characters from phases 1 through 3. Not all of them, but some of them. But this phase has introduced, like, a bunch of new characters. And you have to establish them. And so they just kind of shoved them all into Phase 4 so that moving forward, you can play with this tapestry and play with different, now you've got all of these different characters. You've got younger characters. You've got the foundation for a young Avengers. You've got a bunch of carryover veteran characters like Doctor Strange where you can pull them in. You've got new characters that are going to be coming like the Fantastic Four. So just my advice to people who want to check out is just give it some time. And if you want to circle back to the MCU, you can. But it might just be easier to just like watch the 2-hour movie once every 4 months.
Yeah, I'll make this real quick because I don't want to go too crazy with us being like an hour and 15 minutes in. I've started noticing that we're having the opposite effect on the DC side, where James Gunn is trying to rebirth this thing for us DC people. He's trying to rebirth something and make it cohesive and make something great. Where there are people that aren't on board with it and are trying to like support the Snyderverse. They're trying to like kind of limp this along longer, and I see it a lot where they're like they're talking about like bringing the Snyderverse to the Netflix or something like that, and I'm kind of pissed because I'm like, just let this one die, just let it die where it lays. Only because like why
if you have a poor foundation, you can't build anything sustainable.
Yeah. So, and that's what I'm upset with is because I read the comics of these characters. I read the graphic novels. I've watched all the movies, animation movies. I bleed for these type of characters, these stories. So for someone like me who watched the Snyderverse ones, and especially with the Snyderverse Justice League came out and everything, I was like, okay, it's good. But
can I
was
jump
it worth
in real
it?
Quick? Like the Snyderverse is not the Snyder cut of Justice League was better than what we got. That doesn't necessarily mean it was great. It was good. I liked it. But it also was a 4-hour movie that needed to be cut down and would have still been trimmed and everything if they did. And even then, the story that they were telling is not necessarily one I would hinge an entire franchise on, because they were going with the whole Dark Superman arc, and there's really not a lot you can do to go from there. It is the Phase 3 thing that you do to phase out Superman. I mean, if they had killed Superman in Phase 3 and then brought him back as like this evil mindless monster as like the big ending of their Phase 3, kind of like the Thanos of the MCU, that's fine. Right. But they did that 3 movies in, and like that's where it was heading. It was heading in that direction, and it's not necessarily... It would have been something fun to explore, but it is not the long-term engine that they wanted out of the DCEU. It's something that they were telling a one-arc story that would have been really hard to pull out of afterwards.
Right.
And this way, they're rebuilding it, and they can... And if they ever want to do that, which I don't know if they should, but if they do... They've got time to build to it, but you don't get attached to these characters when you just stick them. I mean, Justice League was like the 3rd movie in the DCEU. That's a really hard bar to follow, but they really were trying to catch up with Avengers. And so instead of establishing characters and having us get attached to them, they just shoved them all and were like, you know Batman, you know Superman, now let's watch them be crazy. And it's like, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's not sustainable long term. I think what James Gunn is doing is building something that is sustainable long term. And if you are a DC fan, shush, like, it'll get there. And I promise that these same people who are saying, they should just be restoring the Snyderverse on Netflix, are going to be the same person who, once the DCU is kicking, they're going to be like, I was behind this the whole time. I knew that James Gunn was going to crush it. Like,
so this is my point, is that, to what you were saying, is that the way the Snyderverse was going, how it wasn't cohesive at all, you really didn't get to build up to anything where they didn't even have like a singularity Batman movie to like really understand the Ben Affleck Batman itself. They kind of just threw him into Batman versus Superman.
It was super Batman, let's move on.
Yeah. So for them to say like, let's continue the Snyderverse, but like, I don't want them to, only because, like in the comic books where like the Justice League has already been together for so long, then he fights Doomsday and dies. Or not really, he doesn't really die, but he goes into like a coma state thing, and then he comes back as Black Suit Superman and so on and so on. They kind of do this so fast in this arc where I just didn't see where they could really go with it other than maybe fighting Brainiac, but it was just so wishy-washy with everything that I was just like, when they were finally like, James Gunn's coming in, we're rewiping everything, I was kind of on board because I'm like, cool, because I want the Marvel cohesiveness, and with these people were like, well, let's bring back the Snyderverse, but I'm like, it wasn't good. Like, I have to be humble about my franchise. Like, it's just not good. It's not working. We need to have, if you want to be compete with Marvel, you need to have a basis. You need to have these other characters, like a Teen Titans style like movie where Blue Beetle's in it. Have a Cyborg movie, or
Booster Gold, I think, is getting a show. Like, that's great.
Yeah, so like we need to have these things, and which James Gunn has said that we need to have cohesive within the shows like Marvel does. So whatever happens in the shows happens in, it kind of links together with the movies. So that way, when you're going to the movie theater and something happens, like, oh, Blue Beetle is in this movie, or he's in the show. Oh shit!
Right, you can have characters from the TV shows appearing in the movies, and vice versa. And also, so let me also say this about the Snyder Justice League, is that they were building up Superman as the big bad, essentially. The evil Superman is where you're going. But when you go there right away, I understand we all know who Superman is. We all know who Batman is. We know their backstories pretty easily at this point. But that said, I need to grow attached to this version of Superman and Batman. And I understand, I know who they are, I know the backstory. I'm cool with cutting it. Like, I'm cool with like when they did Spider-Man with Tom Holland, they skipped a lot of the like Spider-Man backstory, because it's like, this is the third iteration of Spider-Man. You get his backstory by now. It hasn't changed. But that said, it undermines Superman when you just go right into evil Superman, because we haven't had enough time to be like, he is devastatingly powerful. I mean, Superman is arguably one of, if not the strongest, like, fictional characters in fiction. Like, outside of like literal gods, he's up there. And even then, he's still up there. Like, he could still hold his own against Zeus. Like, so to not take any time, because even though we know Superman's background in film, they weren't done great. There have been very few like really great Superman movies, especially because we went from like comic book movies being kind of campy to being the MCU and to being taken more seriously. So like Man of Steel was great. I loved Man of Steel, but I don't know if they gave enough time to these characters for me to then fear the characters. You know what I mean? If you want to build to an evil Superman, you need to have established Superman long term and shown some of the crazy stuff he can do. They went from his origin stories to him fighting Batman, where he kind of got owned, to then being like the big threat. And it was like, well, I don't understand why he's the big threat when Bruce just beat him one movie ago. I mean, he had him with his neck on his throat, or with his foot on his throat, and he, Martha, and it's like, why would you say Martha? And it's like, you can't have the Batfleck beating Superman in one movie, and then the next movie being like, how are we going to stop Superman? And it's like, you already did one movie ago. Like, that's the hard part for me. So when people are complaining about like, how are we going to do this? Or how are we going to... James Gunn is brilliant, because not only did this hard reboot need to happen, but he knows that there's Marvel fatigue right now. He knows that Marvel's going into a phase where they're going to have to rebuild characters. And so he's like, if we can just start where they're restarting, then we have solid competition, and people might be bored with this. So let's give them this. People might be MCU tapped out. Let's see what DC has to offer. And that's why he had to hard reboot it now, because we're at that crux where it's like, Marvel's going to keep trucking, so you got to catch up fast.
Yeah, and to what DC has offered, they have a lot to offer us fans. They have a lot of heroes that are very cool, and have very cool stories. So like for people to wanting the Snyderverse, it just makes me mad, because of me being a strong, hard DC fan, I am just already on the bus. I'm already had my bus ticket. I'm already on the bus with, James Gunn. I'm like, dude, show me a story. Show me something cool.
Show me what you got.
And he's like, and he's bringing out Blue Beetle. I love Blue Beetle, man. Jaime Reyes is an awesome character. I love him in the Teen Titans animated movies. He's so cool. He's a great character. That whole arc of Blue Beetle was great. I want to see a little bit more Shazam, honestly. I hope they keep Shazam because Shazam's a cool character. I actually wasn't a big Superman guy. I love Superman for what he is and what he stands for. It's
He's
great.
boring.
But I wasn't he's everyone's hero in like my aspect. That's why I kind of like stuck with Batman because he's human. But I also loved Shazam because he was a kid who had God powers.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, that is awesome. And with everything. And then I loved the Lantern Corps. I loved Green Lantern. I loved Hal Jordan. I loved Jon Stewart. And them flying to different universes. And then they have a collective of different beings who had these powers. And I thought it was great. So I think they need to bring these other characters into the fold without fucking it up. Excuse my French,
Wonder
but without
Woman,
fucking it up.
Batman, and Superman are your staple franchises.
Mhm.
I'm not saying take them away, but what I am saying is that the DC comics and the DC universe is so much bigger than those three characters, and stop telling the same story over and over and over again. Don't get me wrong, the Batman is my favorite Batman franchise. I think to be fair, like, it'll take some time. People who say that the Nolan franchise is better just like Heath Ledger's Joker better, and I respect that. It is worthy of his performance is worthy of pulling the whole thing up to your favorite tier. But in terms of a Batman movie, I think that Robert Pattinson's Batman is by far the best movie, and the best Batman.
I would agree with you. And I would agree with you because I loved Christian Bale as Batman. I loved Christopher Nolan's adaptation of Batman, but I love Robert Pattinson as Batman. I thought he was amazing.
I thought he was amazing, and I think that the writing
was amazing.
Accurately put a Batman noir-esque detective style comic onto film. It translated in a way that they've never done before, and it was wonderful. I'm not saying don't do those three things, but you're right. There's the universe of the DCU is so deep and thick, just like the MCU is. There are thousands of characters, thousands of connections and stories and arcs that could be told. So to tell the same one over and over and to just keep messing it up, it's like, look, I don't want to see you fumble the ball the third time. That's why, even though I am very adamantly against Ezra Miller, I'm going to go see the Flash movie because it looks really good. It looks like they listened to MCU and they're doing the whole alternate universe Batman, which is a really cool throwback. And this seems like it's going to be the hard reboot. Also, I don't know if this is necessarily a spoiler at you, but I was Googling the other day. And Grant Gustin is unlisted as one of the actors in the Flash movie on IMDb. So I don't know if that's just going to be like a little throwback thing, or if they'll do what everyone's hoping, which is to like make Grant Gustin the movie Flash. I don't know. It'll be interesting, but it's certainly enough to pique my interest. It could also just be that IMDb is like, you want the Flash, you might want Grant Gustin. But he's unlisted. So it could be an error. It could be that he's in the movie briefly as a cameo. It could be a lot of things. But I think that this Flash movie is going to, I think it's going to be very good. And I can feel, this is the thing. I can feel two things about the same thing. I can think that the Flash movie is great. And I can even think that Ezra Miller does a really good job acting as the Flash, while also thinking Ezra Miller is a piece of shit as a human being. I can think both things.
Yeah. So like, I just want people to put down the Snyderverse. I want them to bring a Green Lantern in, because you can't have the Justice League without a Green Lantern. To be honest with you, you need a Green Lantern. But also, there's so many good characters that I really want them to show, like Constantine. I really want them to do. I mean, I love Keanu Reeves' version of Constantine. That's great. It's a great adaptation of Constantine, but I want them to bring like the comic booky Constantine in. I think that would be really good. Constantine's a great comic book character, along with Dr. Fate. Dr. Fate
I was so excited when I saw he was going to be in Black Adam, and then the thing that's saddest about Black Adam to me, is that like they took a bunch of characters I really like and put them in a movie that is at the tail end of the DCEU, and I was like, here's the thing. I'm glad that they got the spot, but I know that they're gonna get swept away, and like hopefully
Yeah.
they bring them back in more frequently. But like Doctor Fate, I was super excited about.
Hawkman.
Hawkman and
Hawkman
Hawk.
got a cameo.
It's not
Yeah.
Hawk Woman, right? Hawk Girl. It's Hawk Girl, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Hawk Girl and
Yep.
Hawkman. I love both of their characters, especially from the Justice League animated series.
Yep.
Doctor Fate was obviously like a big one for me because I love Doctor Fate. Atom Smasher. I'm a big fan of Atom Smasher.
Yeah. Yep.
He's just
Yeah,
like a
so, like,
cooler
there's so many-
version of Ant-Man.
Of Ant-Man. Exactly. That's what I was about to say. I was like, he's just a cooler version of Ant-Man. Like, it's just like there's so many characters that they can use. Like you can have your core seven characters, but then we need to like build this into the the Justice League Unlimited universe.
Yeah.
Where like
Well,
after the
there's
Justice League animated show ended, like all of a sudden it goes Justice League Unlimited, and all of a sudden they had like a plethora.
Yeah, it went
of
from like the
heroes. And
same
you're like,
5 to
whoa!
7 people, and then they were like, okay, now we're Justice League Unlimited. And we're like, great. And they're like, and we have our thing in space that like monitors the planet. And you're like, right. And they're like, and there are thousands of heroes on it. And you're like, what?
Mhm.
Why are there this many heroes? That guy just has a cowboy hat and a gun. Is he really a hero? And they're like, yes, he is. His name is Jonah Hex.
Yeah. And but then I really want to see like Green Arrow on the big screen with
yes.
Black Canary, the love interest, and like there's I don't know.
And that's
like,
where where the TV show part of this really kicks in for me, which is like this is where DC, because I don't know if DC necessarily has more heroes, but this is where DC can pull an advantage in my book, because the Avengers has always been a team similar to the Justice League, but it feels, because of the way the MCU has just done things, it feels very structured. So yes, there will be new Avengers. Like a lot of people aren't technically Avengers, and it seems like there won't be an Avengers movie for a while they kind of reestablish everything, which is fine.
Right.
But Justice League, it feels more easy to kind of slot people in and out, to be like, oh, the Justice League is here, and it's not the Justice League, Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Flash.
Right.
Like, it feels like, oh, this person is a member of the Justice League. It feels more like an organization rather than an honorary title. So it's easier
it always
to
was
do
that.
Yeah, and that's what it should be. So like to have movies going forward where you could have a Justice League movie that doesn't have Batman, because where's Batman? He's off world right now. Is all you have to say. Like he's otherwise obtained. This version of the Justice League, we're sending the Justice League to do it, and that version of the Justice League is going to be this time Wonder Woman, Flash, Shazam, and pick a Green Lantern, and that'll be the 4 that you have to work with, and then like some sub-heroes. That's where it's like, oh, I can call, Batman's not here, I can call somebody in, and then you get Nightwing, and it's like, Nightwing is stepping in, okay, we're doing Justice League 2 now, and it's like, cool, well, Superman's off planet, Batman's dead, I don't know, pick a thing, and it's like, cool, well, this version is going to be a reformed Cheetah, and you pick random, Martian Manhunter and Aquaman, and those are going to be the heroes this time.
Yeah, and what's crazy is that is the writing that the cartoon show did that made it so good, because you can do that for this universe where like they were a how Marvel, like you were saying, like the Justice League was a league, it was a association where like if you're a hero and you did great things, you could join the league. All you had to do was just you were just honorary member. You're always there, always in it. So they could, like, when their show happened, every episode was different where they could sub in characters. Oh, Superman's off world, he's saving blah blah blah. Same with Wonder Woman and Green Lantern. So they're like, we're and Batman was a part-timer.
Yeah,
so like
he was
Batman,
never really on board.
Yeah, Batman is subbing in, and we have Martian Manhunter, who was a big one. He was always doing something. Martian Manhunter's here, which I would love a Martian Manhunter movie because he's such a good character. He's such a great character, and I would love that arc of like the White Martians and the Green Martians, which would be cool. And then you have Dr. Fate, or you have Aquaman, and then Flash is in there too. So you don't have to have, like you're saying, you don't have to have the core 7 or
and
how
then when
many
you do get the core 7, that's when you feel like it's that like Thanos level, Dark Side level.
Exactly.
Like, it's like
Dark Side is here.
When like when the Justice League rolls in, and it's like, cool, all the founding members are here. That's where you get that like Avengers Assemble, Avengers Endgame moment where it's like Avengers Assemble, and the first time he says it, it's like everyone who is considered an Avenger shows up, or like most of the people. So like same thing with Justice League. You can have Justice League movies, and then you have like one like pinnacle moment where it's Darkseid or it's Brainiac, and you then have the core 7 show up, and you're like, shit's real when you've got Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Martian Manhunter, Flash, Green Lantern, all of them in one big movie, and then sub characters with them, like the not as core 7. But when those core 7 show up, shit is real. Whereas, like I said, they blew that too early with the DCEU.
Which is cool too. Like, what they could do also is bring in like a Young Justice type of show, like actual show or movie, where then you have a Teen Titan-esque build into the Justice League as well, which they do. I don't know. I just want people to let go of the Snyderverse, because there's so much we can build on to make it so great, and I want people to just let it go and just move on. Let's just move on, and let's let these good stories be told, which I think they will be.
Yeah, me too. I have nothing but optimism going into the DCU, and as somebody who is more MCU over DCEU, who is currently more Marvel than DC, going into this, if you had asked me before the MCU was a thing, which franchise would you prefer? I would pick DC, because DC has the more epic heroes. You know what I mean? Like, they have gods and, shooting beams of light out of their hand and all that. And like, really, Thor was kind of the biggest power puncher in that universe. I mean, not necessarily, but like, as a hero, he stood up as one of the strongest Avengers. And like, with DC, they're all at that level. They're all those, like, they're God tier, and then they have God tier problems. So like, it was always like, and I grew up on Justice League Unlimited, Batman the animated series, like a lot of DC projects. I am only MCU over DCEU because the quality is there in the MCU, and I don't really care necessarily what story is being told to me, as long as it's being told well. And so that's why I wanted to be, I mean, I'm that guy who, when people are like, oh, I'm team PlayStation, oh, I'm team Xbox, I'm like, you're both idiots. Yeah. Just enjoy whatever product is in front of you and enjoy it. Yeah. Brand loyalty does nothing but increase capitalism. Like, just enjoy both. Just enjoy whatever you want. They want you to pick sides. That's dumb. Just enjoy. If it is just enjoy the story and objectively analyze it and interpret it. I will be just as gung-ho into the DCU as I am for the MCU, as long as it's being told well. And I have a pretty low bar for that. That's one of the ideas for the names of this podcast, was the low bar, because you and I just let entertainment come to us, and as long as it meets the low level of expectation that we have, which is, am I entertained? I go into movies like Ant-Man, thinking to myself, it's an Ant-Man movie. It's not going to blow me away. It's not going to be Avengers Endgame. I will go into the Flash movie with an optimistic view, and the bar set a little higher, because Flash is one of my favorite characters. But I mean, I'm going to go in and be ready to be entertained. And if it entertains me, then I'm on board. And if it doesn't entertain me, then I'm questioning things, and that's...
Yeah. At least though, like, at least you can have optimism that this is the reset, or you won't worry about it anymore.
Part of my intrigue with the Flash movie is not only that the Flash movie itself looks very good, but the intrigue is, this is it. This is the end / beginning. Like, this is a fixed moment in time, as the Doctor would say. Like, this is a crucial one. So not only am I going into it because it is the first Flash movie, and I am a huge Flash fan, not only is it looking good for its own reason, it's the story it's trying to tell with Flashpoint, but also there's a lot of intrigue about. It's kind of like being a pro wrestling fan. I enjoy pro wrestling for the pro wrestling, but I also enjoy pro wrestling for the behind the scenes aspect of it. And this movie has a lot of that, where it's like, where are you taking us from here? Because this movie is the end of the DCEU and the beginning of the DCU at the same time. And so there is a lot on the line here. And so this is kind of the first test that we're getting out of James Gunn's DCU. And so I'm really interested to see, when does it come out again? Like, is it April or is it like July?
I think it's April.
Hang on. We're going to go.
Because they're pushing the ads for it pretty big.
Yeah, there was a bunch of, at the Super Bowl. There's a release date.
At least I think it's April.
June 16th, 2023.
Oh, is it? Damn.
So.
Fuck. We got a while. As
then,
time is going, it probably will come quicker than I think.
Yeah, it'll fly by, especially since we're getting so much soon. But yeah, we'll wrap it up there. I think we both had some significant
that's my
rants.
gripe. I'm sorry. I wanted to at least gripe about that. It's something that has been irritating me a lot because I've been seeing a lot more of it. And
as we get closer to the DCU being birthed probably in Flash, I think we're going to see a lot of the DCEU and the Snyderverse stragglers coming in. And then if everything goes well with the first 2 movies of the DCU, no one will talk about it anymore.
Exactly. Yep. Well, I think we can end it there.
Sounds good.
That was pretty good. Yep. So this episode is going to come out on Tuesday. Coming up. You can follow us on our socials: Instagram, Facebook, YouTube channel. So go to our YouTube channel if you want to watch the video aspect of it all. Like, comment, and subscribe. We would love for people to comment. Give us some suggestions on what you would want to hear.
Absolutely.
We love coming up with content. Yeah, we want to build a community, but we also want to hear from our community to see what they want us to talk about and what our thoughts on or about some ideas that they have. You can check out. Go ahead, what did you say?
I was going to say you can check out the podcast on Spotify, iHeartRadio, basically the Apple Podcast Store, like anywhere you can find a podcast, you can get us. Plays always help us. Obviously, we love it when you listen. Downloads help us out a lot, though. If you're not sure how you can support us, just click the download button, and downloads help us out, and then you can listen to it even if you don't have Wi-Fi. I know when I'm working, sometimes I don't have access to Wi-Fi, so it's nice to just have that download in there. And yes, I do listen to our own podcast because I'm conceited, and I like the sound of my voice. Shane's on it, too.
Sometimes I listen to it too because I kind of listen to the audio aspect of it. I'll make sure it's not crazy loud or it sounds good in the car, because having through headphones, it always sounds great.
You know, it's funny. I think that wraps up our dynamic of this podcast and the teamwork that we put in pretty well. You're like, yeah, I listened to it. Make sure that the audio sounds good. Make sure that the editing went well. And I'm like, I like the sound of my voice, and I agree with me all the time.
Yeah. Zach loves himself a lot.
I do.
So,
I'm pretty great. Self-love.
Moving on, we started a gaming channel, Roll4NerdyCheck Gaming. Like I said, I'm going through Hogwarts Legacy right now. I won't always play Hogwarts Legacy. There's a lot of good games that are coming out right now. Monster Hunter Rise, I will be playing soon. Be really fun. I love the Monster Hunter games. It's a really cool aspect. Also, there's a lot of cool little RPG games, some indie stuff. Chain Echoes has been recommended to me, so I want to play that. So be on the lookout for that. New episodes of the gaming episodes come out on Thursdays. So other than that, I'll stay nerdy, my friends.
Stay nerdy. May all your nerdy checks roll high. Nat 20s.
Nat 20.